Hello, and welcome to the Modern Day Mayor podcast, a space for conversations about the kind of future we want to live in and how we begin building it right where we are. If you too share the quiet belief that something better is possible, you're in the right place. It is incredibly common for folks to experience an injury or begin to notice pain in their body and then go on to invest thousands of dollars and endless hours trying to find a solution. But what if neither of those things were required? Today we're talking with Coach Deb from Moving as Designed, who helps people transition from pain and sedentary lifestyles into effortless, organic movement. She has distilled so many years of research and knowledge and lived experience into actionable insights to help her clients heal. Let's take a listen. Welcome, Coach Deb, to the Modern Day Mayor podcast. So excited to chat with you today.
I'm so glad to be here, Celia.
You know, society's kind of trained us to treat age as a taboo topic. You know, it's kind of rude to ask for people's age, especially women. And yet at the top of your social media profile is a pretty bold statement that reads, "I healed my hips and knees without surgery at 58 years old." And if that wasn't attention grabbing enough, it's accompanied by these striking images of you running in slow motion in a skirt or these brightly colored flowy gowns on, is it a manual treadmill?
Yes.
On a manual treadmill, looking like a freaking gazelle. So fun. So fun. So I'm super excited to get into the story of how you've got to this point. But I first kind of want to help the audience understand when you first started to notice that your body was changing, right? And what it was capable of was changing.
It's still happening. And the funny thing is, of course, I had this striking moment a couple of years ago when I was moving a lot. I thought I was doing all the smartest kinds of exercise, all the smartest kinds of things, and yet my hips crashed. They had crashed 2 years before that. My knee had torn when I was a yoga teacher. I couldn't walk a mile as a kid. And I finally had to buckle down and invest in myself and my ability. Once I learned how the body works and you create an environment where the tension is distributed away from the stress spot, and how to basically find natural patterns that you can measure that align with longevity and gravity. And I'd had this idea that there was a blueprint, something like that, many years ago when I stopped teaching yoga. I found something better. And then I did West African dance. And the thing that kept me going was there are examples of much older people than me that move much better than me. And if they can do it, I can do it. So that last hip crash, though, that was a bad one. I just even co-created a book about what exercises not to do. And then my hips crashed. I was crawling to the bathroom. I was like, I thought I knew what I was doing. And the problem was I didn't have enough self-reflection. I love that this is called, one of the names of your podcast is Mirror.
Yes.
I didn't have from the inside of touch point to the outside. How am I doing? Am I doing compared to my 75-year-old African dance teacher? How am I doing compared to a toddler? How am I doing compared to me 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And I had to just hit this moment of like, nobody else is going to fix this for me. Like, if I want to keep and gain abilities, and the crazy thing, Cecilia, is I am moving better than I even did as a kid. And the thing is, because I can measure it and I can videotape it.
Okay, wait. I know I'm not the only person that is shocked right now to learn that it doesn't sound like there was this sedentary lifestyle that preceded this breakdown. So you were pretty active.
I was overactive. just like
Overactive.
overactive. Just and I part of it is I'm hypermobile, and I didn't know this is who I am. I didn't know this from the inside out. We can't tell what our tissue quality is like, or how is our body compared to someone else's. And now that I look back, now that I know what I know about developmental movement patterns, I could go, oh, as a kid, I sat in a W sit. I was kind of self-dislocating my hips. I was like, oh, I was already floppy as a kid. And I was like, that's why I couldn't walk a mile easily in PE.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I was already not doing the things the other kids did. I was already avoiding games, avoiding running. Back then I was sedentary, but then as I became an athlete in my early 20s, you're just more likely to get injured if your alignment is off. Then as I got more injured as an athlete, I picked sports that were easy, like rowing, because it avoided running.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and then I got hurt again. And then I picked up yoga. Then I got hurt again. I'm like, I can't even do yoga without getting hurt. So I had to learn that a lot of the things, it's the collision of both worlds, right? Like it's the collision of the amount of sedentarism I had throughout on and off in my life, but then the overdoing with misaligned movement. Now I do far less movement. But I'm very selective that it has to move me forward 1%.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like your body was in ways big and small communicating with you over time to kind of point you in the direction of, it sounds like taking maybe a deeper or a different look at your movement and your relationship to movement. So you had this crash with your hips, it sounds like. Was that the kind of like the defining pivotal moment that set you on a path of learning more about this?
The first this is interesting. Only on my 50th birthday, I had my first major hip crash.
Okay.
And at the time, I was doing Samba, I was doing African dance, I was doing very smart movement trainings, but I was doing it with my underlying imbalances. And the thing that I didn't realize is a hypermobile person cannot really feel much pain. The overstretched tissues don't say, watch out.
Oh,
And there,
wow.
all those years, I was stretching and stretching more and more because people would praise me. Oh, you're so open. I'm so open. My brain fell out. You know what I mean? So I learned at that time, and I had just settled. Like I'd torn a knee ligament when I was a yoga teacher. I just settled. Oh, I can't walk on uneven surfaces. I avoided uneven surfaces for 20 years.
Oh, our world just gets smaller and smaller, doesn't it? Because instead of, yes, oh, I'm so resonating with
the
this.
the cool thing is I limped into a dance studio where I was like, well, I can't take class, and there were these people doing these spiraling sort of movements. At that time, it was a place called Santa Cruz Movement, and I couldn't believe they said, no, that's exactly why you should move with us. I was like, what? I can hardly walk. And through studying with them for a pretty intensely for a year or two, my knee got better than it had ever been. So I was like, oh, but then later I started to find other patterns. And when I finally at 7 or whatever, 50s, I can't remember, my biggest hip crash yet was when I realized I needed to know for myself. Like I couldn't count on this coach or this teacher or that teacher. I needed to be able to have tools that I could use myself regularly, and that I didn't want to be dependent upon any particular style. And so the point is, I eventually learned I needed both an internal and an external reference. You know, we need the intuitive and the somatic, but if we don't go back out to the world of standards,
Oh,
like, okay, yeah, what should I be able to do if I, and what is the cost of being in a culture where we sit on chairs and we drive cars and we wear, and how much of that cost can I offset through smart training, and how much of that cost can I design out of my life? So, but I have to say the real breaking point was thinking I'd collected all this info about how to be healthy, and there I was again, crawling to the bathroom floor, stabbing pain, and then I just decided this is it. I'm not going to settle for just assuming that what I'm doing works. I'm going to measure and test.
So where did you start?
Well, boy,
Like, was there a coach? Was there a framework? Was there a
so
textbook?
many coaches and frameworks. Oh my God. Okay. And yet what I realized at a certain point was I needed to own it myself. That was actually one of the loops that would be kind of a problem is I would get, so this is it. This is the thing. I'm just going to do this. So I'll tell you a couple of the big awakenings. One is as I was teaching yoga 15 times a week and my body was falling apart, my finances were falling apart. I think that's also the emotional overgiver, right?
Yes.
I think hypermobile people like me are like overgiving, floppy. It's hard to get back on our own 2 feet, right? And back then, someone said, hey, these other former yoga teachers, they're watching what people in West Africa do. Come and check it out. So I did. That was called Balanced with Gene Couch up in Palo Alto, and it was an awakening. They're like, the world's best movers don't do any yoga. They don't stretch. Like, they bend differently. They walk differently. They carry things differently. That's like their whole movement culture is dramatically different. And look, it aligns with all of human history until the mass media, mass-produced furniture, mass-produced homes, mass-produced cars. So that was an awakening that got me over towards some really smart ways of being. You know, I grew an inch taller, changing how I sat in my car driving 3 hours a day. I took up West African dance because it had gentler angles than some other linear fitness ideas, right? But it still wasn't enough to get me through changing at my deepest level some of the patterns that I didn't even realize I had as a child that kept me from being athletic. So that first awakening, I was like 30 years old or something. And then for 25 years, I had a design research job in Silicon Valley. And so I would dance at night and I would go work all day and I would drive. And so I was very sedentary, but I was still very athletic, but I couldn't keep that balance anymore once I turned 50. Like, and so the techniques, then it was Go Clay method. I taught that. It's aligned with that same stuff. Then there was functional patterns. Then there was original strength. Then there was Axis syllabus. And then there was a Posture Restoration Institute, Go to Greatest of All Time Actions, Primal Movement.
Oh my goodness.
I basically, because I've been a researcher my whole life. When I was a yoga teacher, I studied with like 150 different teachers. I was like, I'm going to test it out. So that's my main way I'm applying that background in design research is how do I synthesize it down so it's simple. That's my current task.
So instead of folks spending years, money, time sampling all these different programs, investing in all these different coaches, you have done that work, it sounds like, and been able to create is it a program that you offer folks now to show them how you healed yourself? What does that look like?
Yes, I've been, I'm a researcher, so I've been living in a warehouse so I could run these sort of labs on, okay, how do I teach this to this person and this? What if they can't get on the ground? What if they can't breathe through their nose? I've been figuring out really for the last 5 years, I've been working at it more as a researcher. And now finally, I figured out these rhythms where I have small clusters of people that are similar. We do small group coaching over a 10-week period to get a foundational different way of viewing the body. I also do private coaching and what else? Oh, and now I've started monthly online workshops just to introduce people to this way of thinking. And most of all, I'm giving my students their own tools. Like they can take it back out to their pickleball. They can take it to their dance class. They can take it to the way they're cooking and doing dishes, right? I'm passing along these repeating patterns that are honestly so countercultural that it helps also on the backside to have community.
Yes, there's so many reasons why this is a brilliant setup. One of the things that's coming to mind right now is, I think it can be very tempting to outsource our inner knowing to people that identify as coaches or experts, to outsource that knowing to textbooks, right, to medicine, to research. And yet, each of us are living entirely unique experiences and entirely unique bodies. So I love this flexibility that is built into your offering to, one, you can do the work of helping to group folks that have similar opportunities, and then also working one-on-one with you so they really get to dial into what they want for their body, right? Like what their unique obstacles and like where they want to head. This is so neat. Can you share more with the listeners about some of the I've seen these brilliant videos on your social media, these small everyday acts that when engaged with intention completely change your life. And I'm not like speaking hyperbole here, like it's crazy.
I got you hit it. You hit it. It's small. The small things are what matters. A 1% change that you do every single day, or you do 10 times a day, a 1%, a teeny tiny thing compounds. If you add those up, you stack those pennies, and the pile gets bigger every day. That's when, and so that's part of what I'm offering people who work with me is we're zooming out from an anthropological lens. We're zooming way out, like so.
Oh, I love that when you were talking about your references, you included babies and dancer. Like, I love that. The whole spectrum, right? Yeah.
And are we copying male warriors in their 20s? Or are we looking at, are we stuck being people that are only living in the shape of a chair? Like, we need to zoom way out so that we have our agency where we can design in new habits. And to your point, okay, and you mentioned babies. There's a way all healthy babies move, because they have to have an honest relationship with gravity. Parents, like me even, unfortunately can interfere with that by giving them these propped up squishy weird chairs and things, or trying to cover their feet with shoes. So but when we look all around the world, no matter the culture, no matter the there's a pattern, and that same pattern is the pattern in the 100-year-old who can sprint. And the same pattern is in the people like me who are able, despite all the odds, to restructure ourselves so that we aren't getting hurt doing things. So, and like you said, that awareness, it looks like it just belongs in a gym or on a treadmill. No. It's everywhere. Movement is everywhere. It's all the time. Exercise being put in this little bucket as is too small to address the power we can reclaim in the smallest moments. And I'll still find, like, I'll do something with a lot of reverence, like, oh, I'm retentioning this. I'm doing it with full attention, full intention. And then I'll go and I'll find I'm picking up a pot. I go, oh, yeah, and I'm all scrunched up. And then I'm starting to catch myself. That's one reason I started filming myself, is I'm like, I'm going to see what my unconscious habit is. And using videotape, whether it's slow motion or regular speed, to start to go, oh, how am I really moving, has been really, that was the huge breakthrough for me, is I could see from the outside whether it was dripping into my everyday life.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so you mentioned, a movement like reaching for a pot. Some of those other tiny micro adjustments that you're helping to educate people about. I think I saw a video about like getting in and out of the car. Can you share like what that's about?
Yeah,
like, what do you think of when you do that?
It's funny. What'll happen is, as when I separate a pattern out and I'm teaching it to someone, like, oh, when we stand on one leg, we do this, and this is an exercise pattern. And then I found the way I was getting out of my car was violating that pattern. I'm like, oh, so, okay. And okay. And I'm going to get there. I promise. So one reason I use as my logo the Fibonacci golden spiral. There are the strongest shapes. That simplifies life. Like, wow, these divine proportions, these patterns, these angles, these are the strongest ones. So I don't need to sit around and complain all day. That's unhealthy. That's unhealthy. That's what I used to do. That really turns people off. I won't do a back bend. It'll just hurt me. Well, no, there's a strongest pattern. And so I was getting out of my car and and also, guys, since my hips they're missing a lot of the helpers, the labrum is torn or whatever. So I just needed to learn, how do I make my hip the strongest? I'm not going to do any threatening positions to my hip. So I was getting out of the car. I'm like, I'm doing exactly what I would tell someone never to do in an exercise class. And I noticed it was the way, one of the patterns is that our weight gets like on a back foot, or it gets sort of stuck behind us, and the rest of our body turns. And it's like
Yes.
our body isn't harmoniously saying, oh, my full intent is I'm getting into this car. My full intent, I'm getting out of this car. So often our foot will get kind of stuck on the heel or a little crooked, and we left that heel behind, and our knee gets it or our hip gets it. So and so when I find these little treasures, I post them. But those add up. And, honestly, even me running on a treadmill, those are 15-second sprints. People go, oh, how many hours do you run a week? I'm like, I run 3 minutes a week. The big game is shifting. If there's a 1% change to how we sit, that adds up. If there's a 1% change to how we lift the can of bubbly waters out of our cart at Costco.
Yeah.
And I also like to teach people what are the expected injuries. Like, you can look at the way most modern humans walk, and I can say, well, I can put their walk in slow motion. I'm like, well, this is the first joint that's going to get it. That joint's going to get it. It's predictable. How we walk is how we jump, is how we run, is how we sit. And so these repeating patterns start to make life simpler, because then you can decide where to put those patterns into your life.
This feels particularly empowering because, like you said, it's not about the behaviors, right? Like, it's about the shapes that your body takes throughout the day in any given number of activity. And so once you become aware of those patterns, then you don't even, it's not about deducing or rather limiting your mindset to specific activity. Like, we only think about form in exercise typically, right? Like, then you're like, okay, is my core engaged? Is my spine straight? But we don't think about that form usually, moving throughout our day. So,
and here's the saddest thing. The saddest thing of all is some of the form we're paying attention to is not the strongest. Like, this idea of tightening my core actually can fight against natural wave patterns that propel us forward. So, and I end up also, but I love gyms. I love weight training. I don't want anyone to do less. I want them to shift so that it's just a little more elegant and aligned. And so one of the main principles is, if there's a rotation in the knees that is designed to happen, there's a rotation in the ankle and a rotation at the hip so that the knee doesn't get jammed, doesn't get messed up. And so restoring our understanding of when are we going with that natural rotation, and when are we actually training something that fights it. So training square shapes, like a 90-degree angle, almost always training any square 90-degree angle shape is going against your design.
Yeah, we're not built with corners.
No, there's not a single flat surface.
No.
And things that turn a little bit, most of all the tissue on our body is on a bit of a diagonal that turns. So when we just do straight things, we are using just a fraction of all the healthy support that could bloom around, the wrap around. Think of like the fibers, if you think of fibers of fabric, or no, let's say a piece of paper. Piece of paper, rip. But you like twist that piece of paper so it's got a rope-like structure.
Yeah.
That's going to be very hard to break. So it's funny. It's both strength and organic. They're very similar.
Yes. Oh, I'm getting so excited. Okay, so for people listening who may or may not be, already be experiencing pain, maybe they have even had surgery. A lot of times people will go that route to help get better. Is there like an ideal state for candidacy for your program, like an ideal point in your journey when you recommend people start working with you?
I think, I'm practically a cult leader. I think everybody should join my cult. But I'm going to be real. Let's be real. So to be real, I will never disparage anyone's use of surgery. It's a miracle. It's the best part of the emergency medical system. Mm-hmm. I've seen people struggle and try to fix something, and they weren't as insane as I am. So it was just frustrating. They just waited 3 years. They postponed the surgery. And when they finally got the surgery, they're like, wow, I wish I did that before. Now, Is that me? No, this is what I love. This is my joy. This is my passion. So at the same time, the risk is even if we use surgery to get us to the next step, that doesn't address the root cause.
Not if we're still moving in the same way, right?
Not if we're, so it's usually the first knee gets it, then the second knee gets it, then the first hip gets it. I mean, whichever order these things are in, right?
Yeah.
And so it's, I don't want to be a bionic woman. I know my poor mom, she was practically a bionic woman, the amount of things that she had replaced and yet she was laying on her side on a bed. A lot of the time you can anticipate something is going to give out. So what's the ideal stage? Well, one is just you're ready for a change, not an overwhelming amount of change, but you're ready. Second, it's out of some kind of like joy. Like I think that's why people are liking my running videos. They're like, oh yeah, I want to feel free.
Yes.
I want to feel light. I want to be able to bounce and run and jump or whatever. So definitely I don't want anyone to do something out of self, punishment. Like I gotta force myself. No. Yeah, okay. And that's one of the main principles. The yoga people are right about chill. They are right about that. You cannot change deeply rooted patterns without a safe, spacious, patient way of being. So who is a good candidate? I work with women. I've worked with a few men remotely, but I resonate more with working with women. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have any. And it helps. I've worked with one person without a limb. It's harder for me since this is all based on walking and running. So I would say that's one category that would be pretty hard for me as someone who doesn't have limbs. Yeah. But otherwise, and someone who has some kind of a goal. I'm not though the kind of running coach that would get you ready for an Ironman. I'm not a triathlon. There are great professional sports trainers for things like that. I'm in this happy middle ground where I'm giving you some keys to add ease so you can do more and injure yourself less, and you're willing to take a long-term perspective. So that's a lot of people that could work with me.
Totally. It sounds like start with a desire to improve quality of life and then be open to including more and different exercise, it sounds like, or movement rather. Exercise sounds limiting, especially within the context of this conversation.
Right. And exercise, I think it's great though. Most exercise is phenomenal. And here's the thing. If you're getting any pain signals or repetitive stress injury, that's when you need to come to me. Because there's some kind of change you can make. I've seen, and guys, here's one kind of rule of thumb. Anything that trains your spine to stay stuck in the middle is not going to turn out well. When we move forward through space, we're supposed to be shifting more organically where there's less impact. So now, does that mean stop doing things that you like doing? No, it means find just a little bit different of a version. Gyms are great. And yet I don't go to one. I do weird things on my floor. I don't use any equipment for when I'm building pressure in my body. So for that, okay, that's one thing. It can appeal to people who want to not be dependent upon a gym or not be dependent, like people who are digital nomads, people who have their farm way out in the country. They align with this. And I teach both in person and remote. You don't have to be. In fact, there's a lot more you can do movement-wise remotely in some ways, because you can film yourself in slow motion, and you can see what the African women are doing that's like what the Portuguese fishermen are doing. So yeah.
I'm super intrigued. Can you speak to some of the transformations that you've seen from clients that have worked with you? Like maybe like where they started at versus where they got.
Yeah. Some were really quick. Like there's even just one the other day. We had our first real private session, and she hadn't been able to get up and down from the floor without being worried that she could get back up. And she almost cried. She was just like, I can't believe I just did that. I just showed her how to use the weight of her head to let the weight of her head help her hips lift. And so that was in our first coaching call. I showed her also just how do you shift your knees so that your body is going to use the safest way to get up and down. Another was someone who was a full-time tech worker. That was a couple years ago. He had 4 sessions with me, and usually, guys, I recommend more. But these people had these breakthroughs, and yeah. I didn't know he hadn't been able to get up and down from the ground for 10 years because of a car accident, and he hadn't been able to help with the housework for 10 years, and it was his partner that reached me and is like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing dishes, he's vacuuming, he's like, I can't believe in 4 sessions what he was able to do. So these are people who were on the pain side. They had accidents, they had surgery, they had physical therapy. Now on the performance side, I've had a number of people like myself that are want to be athletic and active, are pretty smart about being active, but they get a setback. Ooh, that I had to get an ACL surgery. Now I'm scared. What can I do? I'm like, well, this is the movement pattern that causes almost all ACL tears. So first, we're going to teach you to avoid that, and then that's a deeper. Well, and we've been together longer. Like that particular student and I, we've been working together on and off. The fascial slings, like our overall, the tissue quality of and our organization with this connective tissue, it can take 2 years to make a deep change. But if you compare how this person looked when they danced all the time, they did all these different kinds of, just like me, they were an over-exerciser. And you take a picture of her posture then, she was way more stressed than she is now. She does way less. And I can point out, oh, this is because your bones are all stacking up. Your muscles are doing way less. So, I've had people be able to shift their scoliosis, mild scoliosis, doing certain breath work. Plantar fasciitis, I've had people get rid of that in like 5 minutes. Like I show them, it takes 5 minutes. I'm like, well, the reason you have this is this. And then I show them, well, that's why we're going to work at it. I'm going to do this 1 minute thing every day. And I think 4 people got rid of it within days. Back pain. People don't understand why they hurt their back. I'm like, well, these are the 3 main ways people hurt their back. So we're going to first change how you sit, and then we're going to teach the healthier version of those, because lower back problems almost always when the pelvis gets tucked under, and then we turn. Like someone who sits at a desk all day, and then they go to play pickleball. Whammo! Or they go to pick up that heavy thing. So I've had a lot of transformations. I have a lot of quotes on my website, and And some are instant because they just had a funny idea about how to do something, and some are more like my own transformation. My running on the treadmill videos, that was like 2 years. But the first moment where I found that I could not crawl to the bathroom, even though I'd been working with a personal trainer, that didn't work. I found if someone who's in physical therapy, that didn't work. And I was like, oh, nothing's working. Do I have to have surgery? And I found, this is so funny. That was one of the keys, is I was in my car going to my personal trainer, and I was like, oh no, this feels terrible. I was like, stabbing pain. I shouldn't even be in my car. I'm stuck in traffic. I was like, oh, that's the pattern. This hip got this way because of 3 hours of driving for 20 years, right? So I was like, oh, I'm going to unwind my driving pattern. I was like, and I'm going to use breath and my foot pressure and my eye gaze. And that half hour I was stuck in traffic, having been unable to walk without a limp for more than a month, right? And I get out and I run.
Pain-free.
But it wasn't stable. So that's part of it. Is someone can have a breakthrough like, oh, no pain. But then I was realizing, oh, but will this stick when I'm jumping and jumping? Like, is this going to stick when the stress is on? Because that's one of the trade-offs, right? Is you need low stress to start the new pattern. And then you need to add either time or load, repetition, so that it stays even when things are not going your way. Like, and that's where the patience of the deeper transformations being settled. And now I'm dancing in my West African dance classes like I never could in my 20s. I am jumping in, but my 75-year-old teacher does that because she's from West Africa. She's from West Africa, so they grew up where your body had to work. And our comfort sometimes entices us to outsource our support, right? Yeah. So there's a process, and we don't want to be silly. Oh, I'm suddenly primal. I'm barefoot, and I sit in a squat 24 hours a day. No, that doesn't work either.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so excited to hear that folks can find out more about what's possible, some of these transformations. You mentioned your website. Can you share where folks can connect with you and learn more about your offering?
Yes, my website is called movingasdesigned.com. And there are lists of things that I use there because I'm very fussy about like if I'm going to use a chair or if I'm going to bother to wear certain kinds of shoes and things. I also have a list of all my group classes. I have some online internet ones coming up. I love teaching online. And I have private coaching and semi-private coaching. I offer too much, guys. You'll help me cleanse it down. And also the links to my own podcast are on there. I have a show called The Architecture of Health because my son had scary chronic things and he's good. Like a lot of scary chronic things. And that was also part of this awakening. I was like, wow, if we had to leave the emergency medical system to really own his health, where else are they're free or cheap answers? Yeah. So that's one thing I cover on my podcast. A lot of it is movement related. Movement, sunlight, great water.
Oh, how powerful, Deb. And it's in that same spirit that this podcast season was created, right? To help show folks that there are more opportunities. We can explore, we can learn, we can empower ourselves in new and different ways. And from neighbors like you and I, right? That are just sharing their story and sharing with other people what worked for them. So, so powerful. And, I think that's why those images of you running on the treadmill in these beautiful gowns, like it somehow communicates all of that in like a split second, right? It's just like, oh, I've never seen that before. Now I know that's possible. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. Awesome conversation.
Awesome conversation. Thank you, Cecilia.
Thanks for joining today's conversation. As always, contact info for our guests is available in the show notes. And if something stayed with you today, I'd love for you to share it with a friend or comment and leave us a review. It helps more thoughtful humans find their way here.